Welcome to Sound Bites. I'm your host today, Holly Whitfield. I'm here with Chris Herrington. This week we're going to talk about some chicken tender news and the Battle of the Barbecues final blows, recap of that, and some other newsy updates. Sound Bites is a Daily Memphian's weekly food, drink, and dining podcast. You can tune in on WYXR radio every Thursday at 11 a.m., or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes or Spotify. You can, of course, also listen at thedailymemphian.com. If you are listening on WYXR, up next you can hear the Sidebar podcast with Daily Memphian CEO Eric Barnes. This week he's interviewing Memphis music producer Matt Ross Spang of Southern Groove Records. But let's get started. Chris.
I think now that the smoke has cleared is the cliche you were reaching for there.
Yes. The smoke has mostly cleared, I think.
Right.
On our city's 2 barbecue competitions, which were held over last week and weekend. And Chris and I both went to both of them.
Yep.
And along with several other reporters from Daily Memphian, reported on what we saw, what happened. Chris talked to some teams. So we're definitely going to talk about that and the drama surrounding it, what was good, maybe a little bit about what was bad. But let's do some shout outs. Chris, you were telling me about a meal that you had this week.
Yeah, I've been sort of boring lately in my eating. I am at this point less than a week from actually moving. The move I've been hinting at is about to happen, even though I'll be back in Memphis 3 weeks after I leave. But I've been hitting up a lot of old favorites, a lot of like my comfort food stuff. Like last week I shouted out the bar at the barbecue shop. Maybe the restaurant I've eaten at most in the city of Memphis might be the barbecue shop. I hit up another one of my favorite comfort meals this past week, and that was an enchilada plate at La Guadalupana on Summer. That's just one of my real go-tos. I like the sauce of the verde, the green sauce on chilaquiles. I like the red sauce on enchiladas. Chicken enchiladas with the red sauce.
Yes.
That's just one of my go-to meals in the city of Memphis, and I indulged in that again in the past week. Shout out to La Guadalupana.
That is a good spot. I'm going to give a shout out on our producer, Natalie Van Gundy's behalf. She tried, her and her family tried, they all were able to actually try the same cronut because it was a giant cronut croissant donut from
It's like a biblical cronut.
I know.
Like loaves and fishes situation with the cronut.
Right. We were hungry and the cronut
Fed us all.
nourished us all. From the Bear Fruit Cafe, which provides the pastries for a coffee truck called the Family Cup. So find the Family Cup, and therein the Bear Fruit Cafe will hopefully have given them some big cronuts. It sounds delicious. The pictures on Instagram also look amazing. I haven't tried it yet, though.
Find the Family Cup sounds like a quest. It sounds like a real challenge.
It might be. Find the Family Cup. Take a sip. But eat the cronut. Big news today as we're recording this episode of Sound Bites. Blew through the newsroom here at the Daily Memphian. Raising Cane's chicken tender chain is coming to the Mid-South.
We've moved from Battle of the Barbecue to chicken tender turmoil.
Exactly. We were sneaky and did not put the location in the headline or the teaser line on the story, so you had to click to read it. But we'll tell our listeners it's coming to South Haven.
Okay.
So I think it's funny, like, apparently last year on Twitter, the Raising Cane's account was like, we're coming to Memphis next year. And I'm like, no, you're not.
I have a chicken tender confession, Holly. I was however many years old I am today when I learned that the Memphis area did not already have a Raising Cane's chain. It did not occur to me that there was not one. I just assumed we have all the chickens,
Because we have all the other chickens,
right.
It seems like. Yeah, but this is a big deal. Reporter Rob Moore, he covers DeSoto and North Mississippi. He broke this news, and it broke the internet, sort of, at least locally. But I've only eaten at Raising Cane's maybe once or twice. I was not impressed. But I also hear that the locations vary greatly in their quality. So
Right.
it may have been the location, which was just somewhere outside of New Orleans on the way back. And
Is there something particularly notable? Is there anything idiosyncratic about Raising Cane's as opposed to, Zaxby's or other Zaxby's I've had, Guthrie's I have not, but the other chicken tender chains is what sets Raising Cane apart?
well, I wish I could answer that
Right.
question. I don't know. I know that people like their sauce a whole
Okay.
lot. Yeah, the Raising Cane sauce. I have a lot of friends, of course, being from Mississippi, that love Raising Canes. And the only reason I knew that we didn't have one in the area is because people have talked about how much they wanted. Or I had somebody once be like, "You have to bring me back Raising Canes when you come through Jackson." And I'm like, "It's not going to be good by the time I bring it to you." But I don't know. Air fryers can do a lot. So we'll see. I'm not going to go to South Haven to eat Raising Canes, but many people will.
Okay, if we can both locate our inner 12-year-old, what is atop your chicken tender power rankings?
Oh,
I associate chicken tenders as food for 12-year-olds. And
Yes.
we're all at some point in our hearts a 12-year-old. I like a chicken tender. I'm not saying I don't.
I'm trying to even think. We did not have this we either had Taco Bell or McDonald's or that level of fast food, or then you went up to the Red Lobsters that we talked about last week.
Right.
I don't know that when I was growing up, when I was 12, we really had this next level of fast food to me. I'm calling it next level because I feel like it's more expensive
Right.
than a McDonald's. But I do feel like I definitely ordered chicken tenders at places where I went
I got 2 chicken tenders I'll recommend. In terms of more chainy kind of thing, I think the chicken tenders at Abner's are very good. And back when Crosstown was my second home and a satellite office, I would get lunch from Abner's occasionally. And sometimes I'd get a baked potato, chop up a chicken tender, throw it on top of your baked potato. That's kind of health food. But sometimes you just get a chicken tender plate with fries, right?
Yes.
Those are good chicken tenders. I think my favorite, and it's been a few years, so I can't attest that the quality is the same as it was when I had this 5 years ago. But the surprise chicken tender for me that I had was at Dyer's.
Oh, yeah.
Down on Bill Street. Like truly some hand breaded. It's almost like they were throwing a whole chicken breast in the fryer. I mean, they were large, but they were quite good.
Well, if I can't remember my childhood chicken tender favorites, I can tell you now, Bar Dog has the best chicken tenders in Memphis.
Not Gus's.
I think.
Now I asked
think
about
so.
Gus's.
I think Gus's is a different thing, maybe.
Gus's might have the best chicken tenders in the world. I wouldn't know because that's not what I'm eating at Gus's. I'm getting a dark plate. Give me some thighs and legs.
Your
Yeah.
kids don't order the tenders and you don't sneak a bite?
My kids don't order the tenders. No, they order the real chicken. We're raising them right in my household,
I'd be
Natalie.
surprised. I heard you had a picky kid one time.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I guess his Gus's, he went from too picky for even chicken tenders to more adult style eating. He sort of skipped the middle, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. I mean, that's like a food growth spurt.
Yeah.
Which I hear your kids also have.
Yes. He said growth spurt in multiple ways. Yeah.
Yeah, talk about tender turmoil over here. I just think Bar Dogs are really good. They're really crispy. They're really big. They're delicious. I think Bar Dogs food is underrated. I say it all the time. But
People loved Houston's.
yes, people love the Houston's chicken tenders. If you're listening and you loved the chicken tenders, write in and tell us why, because I never got to have them before they were ripped away from the menu. And it caused such distress that I believe we wrote an article about it, about the people who were upset about that. But beyond chicken tenders, we wanted to follow up on some other news that we had talked about.
Speaking of people being upset,
Yeah.
Jerry snow cones.
Yes,
We
Jerry snow
talked
cones.
about it last week at a level of uncertainty. Soon after we recorded, it became certain that the rumors were true. The original Jerry snow cone on Wells Station. What's that neighborhood called? Is it Berkeley or is it not Berkeley? Nutbush, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere
Up,
in there.
north of Summer up there on Wells Station, the original Jerry snow cones apparently had been closed for a little bit, and now it's permanently closed. And I felt bad initially because my son had said, we need to hit up Jerry's before we leave town. And he'd said that about 3 weeks ago. And I was
Yeah.
somewhat heartened to discover that at the time that he said that, it had already closed. We just didn't know it yet. So we're going to have to hit up the other Jerry's location, up around the Germantown Parkway area. But the original Jerry's, one of the classic Memphis places, apparently closed, apparently not coming back. But the owner did say that he does plan to open another. It won't just be the Germantown Parkway Jerry's. It will be another Jerry's. He will open somewhere in the city of Memphis. He is scouting locations. He said, I think he was there's be some public component to people choosing where they wanted them to go. But apparently it's not going to be the original location there in Wells Station.
Okay, so we actually in our story talking about this did a poll asking our readers where they would like to see a new Jerry's Snow Cone location. Let me see if I can get it to give me the results here. So we put looks like about 15 different neighborhood options.
We have a long thing.
Yeah, we went Arlington, Bartlett, Binghamton, Hickory Hill, Orange Mound, South Haven, Whitehaven, all the havens. So narrowly beating out Midtown, our readers.
That's what I just voted for.
Yeah, me too. But our readers, 32% of them said they want it to be in East Memphis. And I'm like, okay, well, let's break that down further.
Right.
That's for the next poll, I guess. 30% said Midtown, 13% said Germantown, 10% Bartlett, 6% downtown, and the rest is 3% for all the other neighborhoods.
I don't know whether, because I already voted, now the list has disappeared. So I don't know whether this was an option or this is more micro-targeting between Midtown and East Memphis. I'm going to say University District, University of Memphis area would be a good place to have a Jerry's.
I agree with you. I think that's a good one. So we'll see. We'll see where it is. But it's a shame, I guess, to have the original location closed. But, the Cordova Germantown Parkway location is not bad. It's also pink, guys. It has a cool mural.
I wrote about this. I did a Germantown Parkway story last summer, and I visited there for the first time, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's not on Germantown Parkway. It's like a block back on a side street.
Bonnie Lane.
Bonnie Lane.
My
My mom's name is Bonnie, so there we go.
No offense. Yeah, no offense to Germantown Parkway. I don't think Germantown Parkway is really a Jerry's vibe, but their little parcel of land, they did a real good job creating like a Jerry's vibe. To me, I think when I wrote this, it felt like a little league baseball concession stand, in a small town kind of vibe, which is exactly the kind of vibe you want. I thought it was quite good, and I don't know whether the Supreme that I got was 100% as good as at Wells Station, but it was close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah.
So before we get back into barbecue, I want to tell everyone listening that this is the Daily Memphian Soundbites podcast with me, Holly Whitfield. Today talking with Chris Herrington about chicken tenders, Jerry's, and barbecue. If you are listening on WYXR, keep on listening for the Sidebar podcast with Daily Memphian CEO Eric Barnes. He's talking to music producer Matt Rossfang after this. If you're listening through your podcast app, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, share your thoughts. You can find other Daily Memphian podcasts on dailymemphian.com. But it's time to talk about the barbecue. If you haven't been listening the last couple of weeks, Memphis in May has had the World Championship Barbecue Cooking Contest for 45, I think this was the 46th year. It was held in Liberty Park, aka Tiger Lane, aka the Fairgrounds, May 15th through 18th, which is Wednesday through Saturday. And then downtown in Tomley Park on the river, Smoke Slam, organized by Memfo, was held basically the same time, the 16th through the 18th. 2 barbecue fests happening at the same time. One brand new in their first year, Smoke Slam. The other one, tried and true. What did you think, Chris?
So the story I did was a little bit more on the front end of the competition, and it was interviewing the 2 teams and only 2 teams that decided to compete in both contests. And so that's the story I did. So I was down there mostly during setup times, early in the week before the competition stuff really got going. So I was able to get a feel for the layout and the way sort of the feel of the settings, but I was not really there during the super public active times. And so I had a feel for how I thought it would work, but I wasn't down there when it was busy. So I'm going to turn it around to you. What did you think, Holly?
Well, I will say that I also went on Thursday, sort of a few hours after they opened, Thursday afternoon, and the setup was very pleasant. It was very spread out.
You're talking about Smoke Slam.
I'm talking about Smoke Slam. Sorry. I'm talking about Smoke Slam downtown, the new one. 57 teams. A lot of people talked about how they loved being back on the river.
Right.
The crowd was pretty small but steady, and by the time I was leaving around 6:30, there was kind of a line forming to get in. And I've talked to other people who went on Friday and Saturday, and they kind of all said the same thing. Like, it wasn't a tiny crowd, but it wasn't huge. And then on Saturday night, I've seen video from the St. Paul and the Broken Bones concert that closed out the event, and it looked like there was a decent crowd.
Right.
A couple thousand people. Smoke Slam the organizers told me that they had 16,600 plus people, paid patrons, they said, over the 3 days. So some of those people, some within that number may have been the same person that went 3 days or whatever. But that did not include team members or vendors, of which there were many. So there's 57 teams, and the teams have like 12 to 50 people on them. You can do that math. But
right.
Memphis and May did not have numbers yet for how many people attended their event in Midtown. But I will say this, even though there weren't a lot of people there on Thursday afternoon, basically everybody I saw looked like they were having a great time. I went up to 6 or 7 different people, random strangers just out of the crowd, and was like, hi, hello, and how are you enjoying this? And they all had nice things to say. So I didn't know those people, I just saw them.
Right.
So that is what I can report, like, overall on the setup.
The thing about the barbecue events that to me is different from the music festival stuff is that people go to music festivals generally, they mostly all go for sort of the same reason. You may go to see different bands, but you're going to like see music, right? You buy your ticket and you're eating concession food and you're seeing live music and, drinking beer or whatever. People go to these barbecue things for different reasons. Some, you're on a team or you're not on a team, or you're part of a sponsor or whatever. And if you're on a team, some are there really focused on competition, and some are there really focused on this is a yearly party for us and our friends, and some try to balance the two. And then if you're unaffiliated, and this has been one of the things forever, one of the observations is it's not as much fun if you don't have a team to drop in on or be a part of. And so what's the experience like for just a ticket buyer? And so to me, the experience is so different for different people depending on what you're trying to get out of it. Mm-hmm. In terms of the teams and the preference of one location or another, I really think it varies. I think I talked to one person on a team that had been a Memphis in May team for multiple years and decided to do Smoke Slam and not Memphis in May. And the person told me, like, it was the river. That was the thing. We want the experience of being on the river. Yes, we're serious about competing, and this is a team that has won stuff in the past, but like, we really want to like hang out with our friends and like hang out on the river. And that's why we made this choice. The two teams that I interviewed who did both contests, they both went the other way with it. Like they're nonpartisans in the battle because they're doing both. Like
right.
they're not invested in one or the other, but they both said, and one of them said, like, even in previous years where Memphis in May had gone to Liberty Park for other reasons, right? That they liked being better, like being on Liberty. They liked being in Liberty Park better because it was easier to load in. It was less muddy. It was just, from their standpoint, they preferred that.
Yes.
They preferred Liberty Park to the river. I think, there's no right or wrong answer to that. That's a personal preference thing. And I do think that personal preference varies. I'm sort of interested in the ticket buyer and the different experiences there. And I don't have a good feel for that, but just walking around the grounds of both before it got busy, it sort of felt like the Smoke Slam was a little bit better geared towards unaffiliated people.
Yes.
It's obviously just a more pleasant place to walk around. And this was true, with the music festivals. Partly it being smaller makes it more pleasant to walk around.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, but there was more, like they had like the Ferris wheel and the carousel, and they had like, festival game area.
Yeah, they had a pickleball
like a
court.
boardwalk stuff. They had the pickleball set up, and it seemed a little bit more festival-esque.
For sure.
And the Memphis and May thing, a little bit more contest-oriented, maybe. They both have live music. I wonder if it feels like they're just going to keep going head-to-head, same kind of thing, same weekend. I wonder if there shouldn't be more of a split and pivot, not just in terms of what weekend it has. I think a lot of people have feelings about that. But in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, in terms of being more contest oriented versus being more festival oriented. I personally think it'd be productive to both veer in separate directions a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and they could definitely do that. One thing I will say about like the ticket holder, the non-team affiliated person's experience, this is something that, not to say the word battle again, but that we battled when I was at Memphis Tourism, is locals calling it Barbecue Fest, people traveling from somewhere, showing up expecting that they're going to walk from tent to tent, try barbecue.
Right.
Obviously, everyone knows by this point, unless you don't live here, that that's not the case. And Memphis in May has done several things over the last decade, I'll say, and definitely in the last like 6 or 7 years to address that.
They have the barbecue alley.
They have Barbecue Alley, which has, I think, 5 or 6 vendors.
Josh Carlucci wrote about that for us.
Yeah, so definitely check that article out. And that's nice. They have some tours, some VIP tours, and the Kingsford Tour of Champions. Those things are additional costs on top of your fee to get in, which is somewhere between $15 and $20 to get in. Then you pay an additional, I think, $20 to do the Barbecue Alley tasting experience, which is like at certain times during the festival day. So that's that. But also I noticed this year that Memphis and May had a Home Depot like demonstration area, which was...
Yes, I was there.
Yes.
I was doing some reconnaissance for my personal decision making. Yes.
Yes. And so they have added that.
Right.
That's interesting. Something else that I heard about some changes Memphis and May made that I can't say this for 100% sure. Maybe I'll be able to verify it in the coming days, but there are just some little things that there are big things to the teams about number of wristbands the teams get to bring in their own guests and number of people allowed on the stage to accept awards and some other things that are sort of like the internal parts of the team experience that I know that Memphis and May has been strict about in the last few years because I heard them being strict about it when I covered the award ceremony last year. And I've heard that Memphis and May has now loosened some of those things and are accommodating some of these little requests from the teams a little bit more. And I had a conversation with the guys from the Rebel Roasters review team, which has been in retirement since 2018 and has just come back this year to do Smoke Slam rather than Memphis and May. And they kind of spoke to this. And, their team captain, his name is Paul Hood, he said that he thinks competition is good for both events because both of them are kind of having to maybe, in theory, and maybe I'm starting to see in practice, like step it up a little bit, both for the teams and the attendees, because now you're competing. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. When you're the only game in town, you can do it exactly how you want and people just have to take it or leave it and deal with it. But if there's two, maybe they're listening to the attendees more. They're listening to the teams more. And I will echo what you said. Everyone that I talked to was also, some people like it better at Tiger Lane for all the reasons you said.
Right.
Lack of mud, ease of load in. Somebody even told me like it's closer to my house, stuff like that. And then everybody I talked to on the river was like, we love Memphis and May, but when they move to Tiger Lane, we don't get to be on the river. We want to be on the river, so we came to Smoke Slam. And
having both gives a choice, right?
Yeah, they don't have to be at the same time.
So the interesting question to me, I think you make a really good point. I think the interesting question to me about this question of competition, about these two things going head to head, competition can serve to elevate both.
Yes. And
we may find out there's enough interest and enough room for both. There was enough interest in teams. You had 57 teams competing, down, or was it 59?
It was 57. 2 teams dropped out at the last minute.
You had 57 competing down on the river. You had 120 something competing at Tiger Lane. You had a Venn diagram overlap of 2 teams, the 2 I wrote about. So I can remember the exact number I had in my story, but it's like 180 something different barbecue teams competing in this one weekend across 2 festivals. So there's enough interest in competition. Was there enough interest in terms of just ticket buyers going to both? That I don't know as much about, but maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a thing where these these two things can coexist even on the same weekend. Maybe there's enough interest. So
It's definitely possible.
Yeah, so competition can elevate both. The other thing about competition, though, is it could eliminate one, right? If it becomes a competition where only one can survive, and maybe it doesn't have to be that way. But one of the double competitors who I talked to who did both festivals, he made the point to me that he said, like, if this becomes only one barbecue, I'm paraphrasing, only one barbecue festival can survive situation, he made the point, and this is a nonpartisan person who did both festivals, but he made the point of saying, if it can only be one, it needs to be Memphis in May. And the reason he said is because of the volume of teams they can accommodate at Tiger Lane versus the volume of teams you can accommodate at Smoke Slam. If we only have Smoke Slam, I'm talking we as the city of Memphis, and don't have the other, only 50-something teams can compete, and you already had more than 100 additional teams coming from Memphis in May, that's 100 barbecue teams that have nowhere to go because there's not room for them.
Right.
And so I think the hope would be that both can thrive separately. But he made the point that if it became a battle, to the death, and the Memphis in May thing is the one that died, there would really be a lot lost in terms of the barbecue contest culture in Memphis, just because the other can't accommodate the volume.
Right. I think that's a good point. And both festivals, I believe, announced that they will be having their respective events again on the same weekend as each other next year. So they're at least going to do this one more time. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I know a lot of people had a lot of big feelings about this, and I respect that because I understand how important, barbecue teams are to people. It's their family reunion. It's their friends reunion. Right. It's their thing they did with their dad. It's their thing they do with their fraternity brothers. So I totally get why there's that many big feelings about it. But it got a little old by the end of the week. Yep. People be taking shots at each other from different festivals. And at some point, you're kind of like, it's a barbecue contest. Like, it's about making the best barbecue and having a good time. So maybe tempers will temper by the time this comes around next year. But we'll talk about it either way.
We will.
That is all the time that we have. You can tune in and listen to Sound Bites on WYXI Radio every Thursday at 11 a.m. Of course, you can listen anytime, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, or dailymemphian.com.